first question goes to Laura Lee Farrell. Tell us about yourself, why you are running for the Board of Education, your strengths, and how you complement the other members of the board.
I'm running for election because I want to see the school system be a thriving, productive, successful organization for everyone, especially the students. There were 4 parts to that question now.
I'll repeat it. Tell us about yourself,
Okay.
why you are running for the board, your strengths, and how you will complement the other members of the board.
Of course, my name is Laura Lee Farrell, and I live in the eastern part of Allegany County with my husband, Bob Farrell. I'm retired, and as I said, I'm running for election to the Board of Education because I want to see this organization be a really successful endeavor for everybody in the county, for everybody to revel in the success of our young people. I want to, what were the other 2 again? I should have written this down. Can we start over? I need to write that. That's 4 questions in like one. Wait a minute.
We'll continue on to get everybody the same benefit. How will you complement the other members of the board?
How will I complement the other members of the board? I feel that I have a lot of knowledge about the school system and how it operates, and many of the people who are employed by the board, and I feel that this would be very helpful as a member of the board to have that knowledge and experience, and I want to bring about better communication. And I think that I definitely can do that. I want to see the budget managed in a more efficient way, and I believe that I have a lot of experience with the budget at the school system since I have been employed by them for many years. So I have a lot of things to share and be helpful with the school system.
Great. Thank you, Laura Lee. Tammy Fraley.
Hi, my name is Tammy Fraley. I've lived in Allegany County for just over 11 years. I have 4 children. 2 are in college and 2 are in elementary schools in Allegany County. My husband is a City of Cumberland police officer and also works in the schools as a school resource officer. Why I'm running for the board is I want to be the parents' voice in the school board. I want to ensure that parents and those taking care of our students have a voice and have a way to get things changed that they want changed, but also to optimize what's already there. Because a lot of times parents don't know what's going on because the communication is lacking. So I want to increase that communication. I want to increase that voice of the parent. I also want to ensure that there's a safe environment for our children. In today's world, there's just so much going on, and we need to ensure that our children are safe, as well as our teachers and administrators that are in the schools, that they have a safe environment as well. And lastly, I really want to ensure that we look at the budget and do more with less. My background is I'm a business consultant, have been for well over 20 years, and also a cost accountant. And I want to ensure that we look at creative budgeting and the use of funds to the best that we can. And that's one of my strengths, I believe, is having that business background to make a difference business-wise. As far as the other board members and my relationship with them or how I could work with them, I think that being a business consultant who's been on a project for 13 years at the same project, I've learned to work with all kinds of people. And you learn that you have to give and take. And I think that's an important piece of working on a board. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Nicholas Hadley.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Hadley. I am a lifelong resident of Lonaconing here in Allegany County. I live there with my wife and my new 5-week-old baby. The main reason that I initially ran for the board, I was in local politics anyway, but I got to see how some of the things were going on within the school system, and I thought, you know, I really need to make an impact for my future children. And I thought that would be a great way to step up and say, my dedication is make this a better school system, not only for all of the children of Allegany County, but for my children. Now that I have a son, I mean, we're a while away from him going to school, but it means even more to me to make sure that it is the most comprehensive studies that are out there. I want to make sure that the programs are in place that need to be in place. I know through my tenure on the board that we have put in place different active learning labs, which is a great success. We also have put in Discovery, which is a program that is done on the computer. We also have made the Chinese Immersion program a strong program within Westside, and I would love to see that grow stronger. Anything that pertains to the students, whether it be academically or whether it be for the Career Center, is what I'm focused on. I actually have been there for a few years, so I feel that my expertise on the board is one that has not been questioned. I have gone through budget processes, and it's not a simple process, but it is a one that's definitely needed. And I feel that I can bring a great working relationship with anybody that gets elected if I'm re-elected, because we get along very well on the board. With that being said, I just want to say that we are making great strides with the academic and Career Center programs that we currently have in place.
Thank you, Nick. The next question will go first to Tammy Fraley. The question is, school boards make educational policy and oversee programs, but county commissioners determine how much local funding the school districts receive. Should the board be given taxing authority? Why or why not? Tammy?
I believe that the school board should not be given taxing authority. I believe that what we need to do is work more closely with our county commissioners as well as our state representatives to find funding rather than it be the school board doing that taxing. Because I believe that we do need to have checks and balances in place. As a school board, if you were taxing, you're making your own money. And there's no checks and balances there. So I believe that having the checks and balances of the county commissioners, but also expanding into that maintenance of effort formula and the state funding that we receive, I believe that needs to be expanded upon, because there is opportunity there if we can work together to change those formulas and expand our programs.
Okay. Thank you, Tammy. Nick?
Well, it would be wonderful if we were able to do the tax base, but I am totally and completely against being a tax base, because that would be a little extra power that the board doesn't need. As you had said, Stu, that we are just there for policy and procedures. I don't want to be in charge of any extraneous money that isn't necessarily due. And I do believe that we have a decent relationship with the county commissioners, and I would like to just see us work a little better with state funding as well as with the county commissioners to secure any unneeded funding that would be out there. I know with the Allegany project, we were able to have both the state and county pony up a little extra funds, and that worked out with diplomatic discussions and everything. So I think that's the one way to make it work without having extra tax or us having taxing authority. Thank you, Stu.
Thank you, Nick. Laura Lee?
Thank you. I agree with the other two candidates, and that is that I think that the taxation should be done in the manner in which it's being done now and not changed. And I think that it's really important that the school system, the school board, works with the county commissioners, and I think that that is entirely possible to benefit everyone. I know that for years and years and years, as long as I can remember, the Board of Education and the county commissioners worked extremely well together. It's only been in the last 7 years that they've had so much difficulty working together. They didn't always agree on everything, but they were able to sit down and work out whatever questions or issues they had, and work to benefit the students, the kids, the young people in our county. And I think having the county commissioners as part of this whole formula is really a very beneficial thing for the Board of Education. I also understand that there has been legislation that has passed with Bill 599 and 509 to have a 25-member committee to study school funding over the next year and make recommendations to Governor Hogan. This is very promising because it may actually change the formulas by which counties are funded now, and that may really be to Allegany County's benefit. And I'm very excited about all of that, and I'm going to be watching it very closely because I think it's going to really help our state and our counties and our school systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura Lee. The next question, we'll start with Nicholas Hadley. The question is, for a number of years, the Board of Education has experienced budget shortfalls that cannot continue much longer. In addition to advocating for increased revenues, what specific expense items need to be adjusted in the near and long term?
Thank you, Stu.
Thank you.
Like I said before, the budget is a very hard subject to deal with, and we have been funded at maintenance of effort for the last several years. I've been there for 4 almost, and it's been maintenance of effort. I know as we sit down and we go through our books before it's presented to the public, we go through all of the programs that are funded, we go through all line items that are funded, and we try to cut where we possibly can. The last thing I want to see are programs that these teachers work so hard to keep going cut. And that would be the last thing I would want to see. But I think some of the funding that comes in needs to focus on the classroom itself. If programs that are extraneous that may not be able to be funded, we may have no choice but to cut those, but that's the last thing that we could do. There's really no extra employees that are on the books that would cause the funding. The last thing I would want to see as well is any kind of schools getting closed, and we are very tight on funding, but that would be the last thing I would want to see happen. So we just need to make sure that we work with the county commissioners and everybody involved.
Thank you, Nick. Laura Lee?
Thank you. Over the last 4 years, the board has spent, in addition to their budget, an additional $9 million out of their fund balance, or their savings account, so to speak. That has been a great deal of spending. Their fund balance, their savings, has been used tremendously, with $9 million being used out of it. And I know with their health care reserve, they've spent $7 million out of there. So we're talking about minimally $16 million. I think with this kind of spending, there really needs to be very vigilant work that needs to be done as to a review of, what can be eliminated that's been spent. I have a couple of examples, for instance, and that is I don't really think there was a need for a full-service kitchen to be installed in the central office administrative building. And I know for the groundbreaking at Allegany, what I'm hearing is that was cost about $25,000 for a tent, a podium, catered luncheon for all the guests, and also a silver or gold shovel for everyone. Those kind of things need to be really carefully examined, and the budget really needs to be, this is a lot of work for the upcoming board, and that is to really look at this carefully. I know of many ways that I feel spending can still be reduced. For instance, they can put a moratorium on out-of-state travel. I don't think that out-of-state travel can be proven to have improved student test scores. So things like that can be addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim?
I think that looking at the school funding and the formula that's used, I think that we really do need to take a deep dive into the budget and look at the line items of the budget, because as Nick said, I think that the teachers and the number of teachers that we have in the school system, there's not a lot of room there. There's actually probably more of a need to have more teachers, because our student-teacher ratio is getting almost too high. I know that my kids in the classroom, having a classroom of 30 fifth graders trying to teach them math is challenging at best. And I know there's quite a few schools that have those numbers in their classrooms, and that's hard to do. So looking at programs, I believe that the programs enrich our school system and should be the last thing that is cut. I believe that they have an economic effect in the long run. Having a school system that provides quality education is going to make businesses want to come here because they want to have their kids in our school system. Having expanded programs like the Chinese immersion program as well as an agricultural program, I think truly will make a difference, not just within our schools and to our students, but to our county in total. So I think that we need to look outside of the programs and truly get down to the nickels and dimes of trying to cut where we can and move money around. We've been on maintenance of effort for so many years. We can't grow money on trees, and we need to be considerate of what we want as a quality education. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. The next question, we'll start out with Laura Lee Farrell. The question is, what current policies and procedures do you have challenges with, and or what current policies and procedures would you change?
Well, 2 years ago, we talked about the policy that they call the communication policy, where employees and board members were discouraged from communicating with each other. I believe that was changed. However, I think that the die had been cast, that the atmosphere was actually, it was a result of that policy. And even though the policy changed, unfortunately, that attitude and that feeling among the employees did not change. I think that, unfortunately, there is a climate of fear in the organization with the employees. I would desperately like to see that change, because I think that's not really a productive, not a productive attitude within that organization. So I would really like to see the communication be one of the areas in which there are a lot of really improvements in, as far as not only communication within the organization, but also communication with the community and the commissioners and parents. And I would really like to see that be a big improvement, have a big improvement.
Thank you, Laura Lee. Tammy?
I think I have two policies that I would like to look at. I agree with Laura Lee that the communication policy needs to be there. As a parent that has gone to school board meetings for several years and actually spoke in front of the school board, to stand up and talk about whatever you're there to talk about, and not be able to get a response back. I understand that they need time to formulate a response and discuss things, but I think having some open forums, not every meeting has to be an open back and forth dialogue between the board and who's speaking, but having some open dialogue session, so to speak, that allows that to occur would be helpful as a parent. I also think, though, that we need to ensure that teachers and administrators and custodians and everybody that works in the school system needs a way to express their opinions, and whether it be anonymously because there is some fear of retribution to them, or again, an open forum to where they can talk outside their normal ranks, so to speak. I think, too, you do have to make sure that you do follow a protocol to some extent, because there are some things that have privacy that needs to take place. You don't want to just come up and talk about somebody that you have a problem with in an open forum. But I think that does need to be opened up. And I also think, though, the communication to a parent needs to be opened up. We need to be willing, the school board needs to be willing to send out information without having it go through a bunch of red tape, so that everybody knows what's going on. Also think we need to use technology to do that. We need to expand our technology of emails and websites to do that. And lastly would be the cell phone policy, which I believe has been looked at already, and it appears to be being corrected at teachers' input, and I think we need to follow through with that and ensure that that policy is used throughout the school system.
Thank you, Tammy. Nick?
Okay, well, I hate to piggyback off the other two, but I do have to say that one of the major issues, and Tammy is correct, is the cell phone policy. That is being looked at and refurbished to basically take into account what the teacher said. A few months ago, the teachers came to the board meeting, and they did come out and they said, you know what, we need to fix this cell phone policy. We need to update it because kids are going crazy with the way they're using it, whether they're using it for actual class or they're using it as just an extra add-on or texting someone across the way. And I think one of the things is that was confusing was no one realized there was a cell phone policy in place. So I think once Dr. Cox sat down with those teachers that voiced their opinion and they realized that there was a policy in force, that helped, but that is in the process of being tweaked, and I think that eventually cell phones are actually going to be definitely needed in classrooms where we can't get iPads or computers or anything like that. I think kids would then be able to use their cell phones for that purpose. But I do believe that one of the major things that we as a board have, and myself included, is worried about is how it's being used and the repercussions if it's used incorrectly. So I think we're in the process of tweaking it. It's going to be much better off the way it is, and it's going to give the teachers the accountability to say, put your cell phone away, you can't use it, and the students will have to obey that. As it is now, it's just kind of do whatever you want. So I think the cell phone, and then also the communication, it's being worked on, but that is probably our biggest trouble area. It is getting better, but it by far needs to be enhanced as well, and that needs to be some type of a task force or some sort of a group of teachers and maybe even parents included to update that. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Next question starts with Tammy Fraley. Drug use is an increasing concern in our community. Are drugs an issue in our schools? What can be done to prevent our students from using drugs and keep the drugs themselves from entering our schools?
We would be naive to say that there's not a drug problem in our school system. There's a drug problem in our county. There's a drug problem in our state. So we have to accept the fact that there is a drug problem in our schools. It may not even be our students that are doing the drugs, but their families are doing drugs. And we have to recognize the fact that the entire family has an impact on the school system, not just the student that's in the school, but everywhere around them. So we have to address this drug problem. As a school board, I believe that we need to be open and honest with that. We need to create task force to deal with the drug problem in our schools and look at it at an age-appropriate way. Currently today, we have a great program with the DARE program in 5th grade as well as in 7th grade. They continue with that process. We need to get them when they're younger. Having students in the elementary schools that is in 1st grade and in 5th grade right now, I know for a fact that my 1st grader hears about it all the time because his 5th grade brother talks about it. So we have to be open and honest and address that. I believe we need to continue having school resource officers in the school system to address that. We need to ensure that there is an open and honest way for students to talk to administrators or to their school resource officer so that they have a place to go when they're scared or when they have a problem. And then I also think that we need to work together with a task force that I know that the city and county are looking at putting together for the heroin problem specifically. And I think the school board should be part of that task force. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Nick?
Well, many years ago when I was in 5th grade, I actually went through the DARE program. And back then it was a very simple, just say no. Well, unfortunately, the peer pressure and the fact that it is out there and the drugs are more prevalent and easier to get to, just saying no isn't as easy anymore. So I really think that we definitely need to have the resource officers still in all of the schools, promoting the fact that this isn't something that we want, that it isn't something that you want to do. And you know, I have actually had a family member pass away because of this, so it hits home. And whenever we think that, when you think of a druggie or someone that has a habit, you think of someone that's on the streets and possibly going out and getting it and just needing a fix. But at the same token now, it's coming in with the heroin and everything else coming into our families. And it's like Tammy said, it's not just affecting our kids, because our kids may not be using these drugs, but it might be hitting a brother, a sister, a aunt, uncle, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, and we need to stop that. And we need to make sure there's a safe haven for our kids that are involved in that, whether it's get them out of there fast as we can, give them an alternative, or we need to actually make sure that, like Tammy said, it's not just segmented in certain areas of school. It needs to be in every grade. It needs to be for every level. And we need to make sure that people realize, yeah, there's a drug out there that'll bring you back if you overdose, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's ever going to work or that there's someone there. So I'd hate to see that be used as a crutch for kids that are out there doing it, because young lives, we don't want to see them lost. So we need to get this under control, and we need to do it fast.
Thank you, Nick. Laura Lee.
Thank you. Yes, there, as both of my fellow candidates have spoken, that is very true, that we can't turn a blind eye to the fact that drugs are available to kids, and that they really have a very difficult time at their age, even in high school, understanding the consequences of involvement in these kind of activities. I remember working with the kids on these issues in a student-oriented program, where we had a adolescent drug counselor from the health department come and speak with the kids, and he would say, in the beginning, everything looks rosy, but you know, as you go down this road, everything falls apart. So this is a hard issue to tackle. I think that it absolutely, we have to do education, continued drug prevention education, not only with the students, and more of it, because we have very little time to do this with everything that we're required to do. The staff needs to be educated. The guidance counselors need to be part of it. We need to all work together in the school system to address this. I definitely think that school resource officers are a big help in this area, and the programs that we already have, but we need more. One of the things that I'd love to see are drug prevention programs that the students are involved in, maybe after school, where they help to identify some of the problems, and they also help to identify some of the solutions, because sometimes the kids themselves know more about what's going on and how to address it than any of the adults. So kids need support for those kind of programs.
Thank you, Laura Lee.